That's more than perfect. Thank you. So let's talk about like reading. How do we read, and how we can help our users on internet to read better? And if I want to discuss this topic, it's because we all read. Like it can be in books, it can be in your couch with a really nice atmosphere. It can be since the youngest age with mostly picture, but it's still reading, or a bit less pictures and more text. It's sometimes about newspaper, magazine, just having a really huge headache because of the news. We're also reading more and more on screens, all kind of screens and media, and almost everywhere. And that's why I wanted to discuss with you today reading, because that's something we're doing every day. That's something that we all are doing, because even if we don't want to, you're reading advertisements in the streets. And usually we don't really know how does it work. So hi, Damien. So really nice presentation, so I will be really quick on that, but my Twitter handle is IamIwolo, and I love Twitter. At least I love discussing with people on Twitter. Way easier than face-to-face because, in general, I try never to speak with people, which is today a bad example. But like that's not entirely true. I love discussing with people. I'm just really good at creating awkward experiences with people. Really fun for people, more awkward for me, but you will see that can be nice. And I like just to do some content warnings, so I'm using quite a colorful language, so please pardon my French. And there will be a few videos, including one with really annoying sound. I'm really sensible to sound, but I'm really sorry in advance. And usually my sense of timing is pretty bad, so I will do my best to speak with you about reading, raccoons, and Jack Peralta. So buckle up, it will be quite intense, but let's talk about readability. And first, why? And the main reason why it's because I can. Like, I have a permit saying that I can do what I want. And today with you, it will be about a really complex cognitive process, which is readability. Really complex because even if most of the people are doing this since the youngest age, it's an acquired skill. Like, you need to learn to know how to read. And it's not something easy because you need first to learn the alphabet. And then you need to learn what is this kind of weird mix of letters together that are words. You need to learn morphology, orthography, semantics, phonology. And once you have all of that, you can start learning like languages. And the issue is that it's not a lifelong skill. Like you can acquire reading difficulties like in your life. It's not something you will keep like until your last day. And the thing is, the web is mainly text-based. And aside of the web being mainly text-based, I had a debate on bun or no bun, but I'm sorry, it will be bun. So the thing is, the texts that are composing our website, that is the root element of our website, is not accessible because not everybody can read it. And outside of reading impairments, there is one good example. I'm not English speaker native, so English for me was something I had to learn. I was in the front of a lot of websites and not understanding one word of what people are telling to me. I hope that today is better and you can hear my English and you can understand my English. I'm not sure about myself, but we'll try to see. So reading is really important. And it's now also in the WCAG. So in the guidelines for accessibility, it's one of the success criterion. It's saying a lot of stuff because WCAG, but mainly the information here is the fact that it's about text spacing. And that's one awful thing. Because if you're taking just the accessibility guidelines, and if you're doing the CSS or the JavaScript for your accessibility, to make your website accessible, the only thing you have to be careful about is text spacing. And unfortunately, there is a lot of studies on dyslexia showing that we don't care so much about text spacing. That's not the most important element. But still, that's the only one we can measure. So line height, space between paragraphs, space between words, and space between letters, really important. And before going on CSS and the fonts, I just wanted to see with you why readability through dyslexia. And one of the reasons why it's because in accessibility, as usual, the idea is always to help the most impaired people to be able to help everybody. If you're solving issues for the people having the highest handicap in front of some actions, you can help everybody. So it's the same with readability. Dyslexia is one of the most common reading impairment. It's more or less 10% of the population worldwide. 10% of the population. It's huge. And in some countries in Europe, it's even worse in a way. Like, for example, Scandinavian languages, because of the really big amount of vowels and sounds in the language, they have like up to 15 to 17% of the population. It's really a lot. And the thing is, you can try to find dyslexic child, but it's not always in childhood too, because when you learn a new language, you're facing new sounds, you're facing new things that you did not know because not part of your first or second or third languages. And this can trigger also some kind of dyslexia. And finally, because dyslexia, it's not only about reading. It's about a lot of stuff happening in your mind, in your cognitive processes, mainly about problem solving. And this is impacting a lot the way not only we read on internet, but we just navigate. So, how do we read? The first thing is the fact that reading is not so much about the text. It's about the sounds that we make. It's about the rhythm that we're having when we're speaking. It's about the music that we're creating. So when we're reading a text, even just for ourselves, we're always hearing a voice. That's the way our brain is trying to make sense of a text. You're hearing it to understand it. And that's really important because this voice will impact sometimes even more than the word itself, from themselves, like the feeling that you will get from this text. It will impact the way you will understand it. It will impact a lot the way you will digest this text. So reading is mainly a phonological process. I love more than 3 syllables, like no. So phonological basically means that it's the association between a sound and a meaning. And that's how reading works. So basically, like this. When you're trying to read, there is like few different voices in your head, one trying to read it and make it aloud, one trying to understand it, and another one which is the word around you, trying to interrupt all of that. And if you need to create this sound, you need to take the words and to make it a sound. And for that, reading is using our eye. But it's not linear at all. Even if all our texts are based on lines, it's not linear at all because we're reading with a ball. Like our eyes are kind of a ball, so you cannot really like move it easily with 6 muscles on a line. So we're doing something called saccades. So basically when we're reading, we're just jumping a lot from places to places, from group of letters to other group of letters. And between each of these saccades, we have something called fixation. So it's the fact that we're stopping on a group of letters before going to another one. And during this fixation, it's the moment where the reading experience is happening. So at this moment, everything starts to be blurry around the group of letters, except the group of letters itself. So we're identifying like few letters and all the shapes around. And that's the reading moment. And that's how we can calculate the readability of a text, usually. Eye tracking, counting the number and the length, the duration of saccades, and the duration of fixation. So it's less about words than it is about staring at screens. And that's quite nice because that's something we love to do every day. But in fact, it's not really about staring at screen, it's essentially about identifying shapes. Shapes of paragraph with, one more time, the WCAG, because I hate as much as I love this text. First, we will look at the shape of a paragraph, then trying to find the different words within the paragraph to identify more or less what it is about. And this is our reading experience on screen. Not linear at all. And that's why you can probably read this despite the misspelling, because we don't care about the order of letters. We just want to recognize shapes, associate to sound, and this is happening thanks to letters identifying features. Letters, fonts, variable fonts. That's where the link exists between the two things. And the identifying features, it's basically the top part and the lower part of the word that can explain why we can read more easily lowercase word than uppercase. And when you have mistakes, that's also why you can identify more easily that problem is problem and not the awful blob of letters that is the last one. And because it's about sound, like it's also like the change of letters needs to happen in the sense that it's part of the same syllabus. It's part of the same group of sound. And in the two first ones, we have the same number of sounds, not in the last one. So that's how we can easily read text despite misspelling. I know, it's really early in the morning. My brain hurts too. But here's something for you. I love trash pandas. It's the nicest thing ever. So what's the point of all of that? The point is, like, we need to design for readability, and we need also to implement for readability. And the best way to learn is to look at airports, because they have to do that in a really stressful environment, which is a moment where people just want to think about the vacation, just want to go in the plane, and don't want to do any pathfinding and any game in the airport. So let's just take a look quickly at what they're doing. And the first thing that they're doing is having only one font face. Only one. Everything is written with the same thing, with the same font face. And a series of variations of weight. This is really helping for the content hierarchy. And also what they're doing, it's not only the weight, but it's really subtle, but they're playing with the tracking between two letters. Like T2 is going together. So the 2 is way closer than B and D, for example. So still one font face, a series of different font weight, and different tracking. And you can find this consistency in the background with C5, which is also really close, and way closer. That would be a C and a D together, for example. So basically, that's what they're doing. It's readable, it's efficient, that's great. But can we do better? Because it's static, it's great, it works, it's efficient, but it's not working for everybody. First, you need to speak English. That's something. Or you need at least to recognize letters and numbers. But also, it's not adapted to everybody. Some people don't like the contrast between yellow and black because it's really aggressive. It's one of the highest contrasts you can find. Great for readability, not so great for autistic people. So, some autistic people. So, great, but not customized. So can we do better? The sound is not there. Sorry. So yes, we can. I'm sorry. And yes, we did, because that's basically what happened with variable fonts. It's not only we can do it, like there is now a way to do that with only one file. So variable font will help you do the extra mile and doing like all the effort to go from just offering a readable experience for everybody to offering a way to customize the experience for people. And this is important because accessibility is really, 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 really hard. And if it's really hard because it's something that you will never manage to do entirely. You cannot create a fully 100% accessible solution. Like you have to do at some moment choices between solutions because not everything is compatible. And because there is no one-fits-all solution, the only way to be accessible is to do customization. And the creation of accessible and inclusive experience is something quite interesting because it's about people, so quite interesting, but it's also about collaboration and customization. Collaboration, because first we need to collaborate with our users, we need to understand their needs, we need to know that what we're doing is meaningful for them, but also because it can help creating a lot of collaboration between designers and engineers. Everybody wants to do an accessible web. Like I never heard someone saying, yeah, no, I don't want to. Like, I don't care. Okay, I don't care, I've heard it. But nobody wants to do this on purpose. Like being like, I want to create an inaccessible interface. So usually, the gap between, yeah, I'm really interested and I'm making accessible website is not so much about skills because you can learn everything on the internet. It's more about discussion and collaboration. You need first to share the same language between designers and engineers because language is a really root element to reality. The best way to share a common reality between people is to share the same language. And designers and engineers don't really know anymore how to discuss together. But variable fonts can be a solution for that. And also, it's a good way to customize experiences for our users and to offer them the way to do what they need to do to be comfortable with what you're offering. And reading is really about this because we all have different capabilities. Some people can read like a whole book during the whole day without any break, just reading. If I'm studying reading a book, in 15 minutes, I'm doing 5 other stuff every time. Newspaper, books, whatever. I'm just doing 5 other stuff at the same time. So we all have different capabilities, attention span. But we also have different media that we appreciate. Some people will only read on screens if it's about with e-ink, for example, like Amazon Kindle and all this kind of stuff. Other people really want a book. Some people don't care. It's like different capabilities, different media, and because we're all not reading the same way. So, sorry Medium, sorry all the website forcing you to read a lot of content in one uniform way. There is no standard like readable experiences. And that's something you can find in all the products in the markets that you can use to read some content. I have a really strong hate for AMP, but that's also because why recreating the web next to the web? There is Medium trying to recreate like this kind of like package of readability. Like it's supposed to be readable, but not for everybody. There is solutions that will take the content and offer it to you in a way that is a bit more customizable, and that's sometimes it's quite nice because you can at least find what you're more comfortable with. And there is RSS feeds, the website themselves, and assistive technologies that will adapt entirely the content that you're offering to the needs of the users. And basically, variable fonts will bring you all over there with like the customization possible for your products. And in a way, if you have to see it this way, it's basically variable fonts are moving more and more from the experimentation stage to offering the same kind of experience that we have with a font size to go. Font size to go are a bad idea, by the way. Just so we can stop doing this because browsers can do that. And it's not the case with variable fonts. Like you cannot rely entirely on browsers to do that because it's really dependent on the fonts that you chose and what are the different capabilities. So thanks for asking. Damien, how do we implement such a thing? Like, should we give complete freedom to our users? And as usual, when someone is asking, should we give complete freedom to our users? Hell no. Hell no, 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 no. Never, 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 never. So.
Just a second. I'm halfway done. I'm halfway there. I'm halfway done with what's happening in here.
I'm halfway done. So, variable fonts. What is the variable part of a variable font? The variable part is, in fact, 4 axes. And it looks like CSS and all the modern capabilities really love axes. So here we have like one, which is maybe the best known one. So the weight of a font. And here you can play like with weight and a value, like a value after. It's not revolutionary, but it's quite nice because the main difference is, like 2 main differences are, first, you have only one file, quite nice for performance, quite nice for optimization, but also you can do really nice transitions. There is no jump from one state to the other. There is a really smooth transition because it's based on vector and you can easily go from one to the other. So, weight. The second one is width. And for this one, it's something that people love to play with in design. That it can be really awful for the readability, but at the same time really nice because you can basically expand the width of a letter but still keeping something which is consistent, which is still designed to be like expanded in a specific way. Even when it's really condensed, it's still readable. I would not advise going this condensed, but still, it's readable. And only working with CSS, and the same working with transitions. Roman versus italic. But please don't do italic. First, because readability is really impaired with italic, and also because usually most of the really cheap fonts that we will find don't have a real italic. They just like slant the font. But quite nice here too, just for the optimization part. Only one file during doing the Roman and the italic. Here, just no transition. And the last one, because we always need the last one, you can slant. You can do some slant. Like you can change the angle, like the degree of the font. You can already do that with rotation of each character, which is a pain. But here the good thing is that the baseline stay the same. So characters are more and more slanted, but the line is still the same. So same here, working with vectors, really nice for transitions. And all of that is working with one line of CSS, which is really not so difficult. And in projects doing, for example, like project in React with a style component, it also means that we can offer full customization easily thanks to this kind of solution based on changing the value with JavaScript. So these are the 4 axes. But as usual, I love adding a bit of bonus. So there is a bonus one. It's not really an axis, but kind of. So it's the optical size. The optical size is a concept in typography which is really important. We completely lost it in font files in the web. We recreated it with having a lot of different variation of font weight and declaration in CSS and changing the classes, changing the declaration. But now we can do this just from a font file, which means that the font can be only one font file, again, and fully adapted to what we want the user to experience. So this can be really a great game changer for the way we are loading fonts and the way we are doing performance, because only one file loading a bit of everything. Subsetting can be nice in this case to not load everything, but still one file. And you can set within this file a variety of presets. Preset like this. So the optical size, it's a mix of everything. It's the fact that you can change the weight, you can change like the space of characters, you can change how they behave, you can change the body of it, you can change the size, you can change everything because everything is based on vector. And the idea is the fact that the type designer will set breakpoint, like with CSS. And at specific breakpoints, we will have a different position for the vectors, and we can move easily from one to the other. And that's how we can recreate the kind of layout that we have in magazine, for example. Because this is already existing in CSS a lot. It's in design system. It's what we call usually like the different text variations. Body, small text, caption, legend, like all these kind of things are different ways to create different optical size. Like if we see the one made by Shopify, so Polaris as a design system, you find it here. There is display small, there is body, there is subheading, caption, and all of that relying on only one font. So now, thanks to this kind of capabilities, we can go from one font with one file per different font weight to one font and one font file. And that's mainly for me how we can recreate accessibility like features with this kind of solutions for like with web fonts. Like it's basically the best way we can have now to propose an experience where we can have like some switcher, some way to customize. We can let people going from one preset to another preset, like to have something a bit like more bold, something a bit more like with more ascendant, with more descendant. We can work on that. And thanks to that, there is one linked bonus. It's the same, more or less, but it's what it's offering us. It's offering us to define also custom access. Optical size was at the beginning one custom axe, so that's why it's a bit linked. But this can also allow you to work with type designers to create, for example, a variation for dyslexic people. Because open dyslexia is definitely not a solution, in the sense of offering just this as an alternative is not working for dyslexic people, because it's targeting only a really small part of dyslexic people. They need to have like this kind of optimization. But you can just create like a lot of different custom axes defined with 4-letter tags. And in this case, in accessibility, you can ask type designers, or you can try to work with the types that you were that you were working with, and trying to merge all the font together, like all the font files together in only one, by working on 3 main axes. The first one is the ascender and descender length. The second one is the bold size, and the last one is the bold shape. So basically, what does this mean? It means that you can change easily the length of the descendant part and the ascendant part, but also the width of it. And this can really be helpful if you want to make the experience more readable. But you can also play with the thickness of the bold. So on the B side, all the main core part of the letter is something that you can play with. And that's the best way usually for typefaces to be more readable. Because if you make the body a bit heavier, and if you make the most of the weight of it on the baseline, it's a good way for people to make the difference between a B, a P, and a D. Especially if you also offer the idea of having a bit more lengthy ascendant and descendant, because in this case there is absolutely no confusion between what's going up and what's going down. And you can play with almost any of the variation. So you can easily, with only one file, move from like the regular text that you would have to the one on the top. Same for serif versus sans serif. Because it's entirely based on vector, it can only be just a variation with the optical size that you move from one to the other. And optical size are working with like font size. So you just have to set for each font size which one do you want to use.
I'm gonna go take another crack at Whitman.
You've been in there like 5 times. What are you gonna do? Annoy him into talking?
Ha ha.
Because
2,
I'm
3,
annoying.
4.
So I hope that I was not doing this with you, like just shouting for like almost 30 minutes and you hear this kind of information, because you can experiment quite easily. And you can have a better success than Jack Peralta in this scene. And the way to experiment is basically doing this. Like there is a font that you can use doing this, and the variation of the font size is helping to move, the font weight is helping to move the horse, for example. But you can also do this kind of things, which are way more useful. Because accessibility is not only about how do we read, but it can also be about what is the feeling that we get from the text. For example, like with different text here, we can have a different feeling, a feeling of anxiety. And we could also try to reduce anxiety by providing different variation of fonts so people can reduce the weight and the emotional weight of a font size, for example. So these are the kind of changes that you can do with only one file. You can also do color changes. So if you have like a website or a brand that are using awful colors that are not accessible, you can also rely on this to change the branding and the logo, for example, the font in the logo, to another color based automatically on different choices. I know it's easier to change a logo, but hey, it's cool. And one of the last example, it's this one. It's the website of a web typography conference called Ampersand. And all of this is only one font file, which in the end is really amazing, because the last argument for one font file next to performance is it's only one font file to replace. So all the people that rely on replacing specific and main font file in style sheet for accessibility reason, it means only one file replaced in this website to get a correct experience if you cannot read the text over there. So in the end, three three small information. If you're really interested by experimentation in variable fonts, I would really advise you to follow David Jonathan Ross, amazing type designer, doing a subscription model for almost nothing, and every month you're getting a new typeface that you can experiment with. But also what BBC experimentation were, because they played a lot with this, and that created some really nice try and experiences on variable fonts, also on subtitles, to see how it can help making subtitles more efficient, and to visit vfonts.com, which is a listing of all the variable fonts that you can use at the moment, like all the well-known, and Access Praxis, which is just a website giving you a lot of information on, in the end, how does it work. So one font filterable demo. So I hope that you're ready to implement that, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Damien.